From folklore and fairies
to monsters and mysteries, it came from the Maritimes.
Like a chimera, but instead of the head of a lion, she has the head of a podcast host. And instead of the body of a goat, she has the body of a podcast host. And instead of a dragon's tail, she has the tail of a podcast host. My co-host, Chelsea.
That was a wild ride. The creature from the Black Lagoon. My co-host, Evan.
Howdy, everyone. Welcome to It Came From The Maritimes, an Atlantic Canada folklore podcast. Today's topic is the barnacled beast known as the Cape Sable Serpent. So, Chelsea, you ever been to Cape Sable Island?
I went last summer, actually, when I went to visit Shag Harbor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, beautiful spot. We went to the Hawk Beach.
No, the Hawk is great. It's actually a great bird watching spot.
Oh, if only I had known. I went there for the drowned forest.
I went there on a Nova Scotia Bird Society bird watching field trip once. It was right before all the wildfires there, so we were lucky there, but it was actually like a lovely area.
Oh, really beautiful.
What you might not have known is that there is the Cape Sable Serpent there, which is a sea monster that has been spotted several times off the coast of Cape Sable Island.
I've never heard of it.
For those who don't know, Cape Sable Island is at the southern tip of Nova Scotia, and it's a nice small town area. But what we're talking about now, more importantly, is the Cape Sable Serpent, a sea monster that was seen in the area. Descriptions have differed, but generally it has been described as 50 feet long, having a long head in the way that like a horse or an alligator does, if that makes sense.
The very similar species, horses and alligators.
But you know, like...
I do, yeah. They have like the elongated...
Yeah, exactly. Like front to back long. Sharp teeth. Eyes protruding on stalks like a snail, which, as I say it, I don't know if the parts sticking of a snail's head are actually eyes, other than it, like in SpongeBob they are.
Makes sense to me.
It's known to have two flippers, a segmented vertical tail fin, and a gray-green body with loops about every 10 feet. It was first seen on July 5th, 1976 by Eisner Penny.
My birthday.
Exactly.
Well, not my year of birth, but...
Yeah, a little birthday treat for you.
Is it ever?
He was fishing when he saw a barnacle-covered sea serpent slowly rising out and diving into the water. At first he thought it was a whale, but it continued to approach his boat. When it got closer, he saw that the long creature had raised 15 feet out of the water, and he sped away, not wanting it to get any closer.
Fair.
He told others in the community what he saw, but no one believed him, and many people mocked him.
Rude.
Little did these people know that some of them would soon see the monster themselves.
Very creepy. I have to say, I would not love to see a 50-foot long creature with eyes protruding on stalks coming towards me. For some reason, the eyes are the part that creep me out the most. I'm like, 50 feet long, sure. But those eyes just... bloop.
Yeah, I know. If you Google Cape Sable Serpent, there's a pretty common, it looks like it's drawn in like colored pencil picture of it. It's on a cryptid wiki, if you want to get an idea of what people describe it as.
Oh, we'll share it to the socials.
Perfect. So the second sighting was 2 or 3 days after the first. Keith Ross and his 24-year-old son Rodney were out several miles from Pollock's Ledge when Rodney saw something in the water. He yelled to his father, who at first saw something large and just assumed it was a sunfish. As they looked closer, they saw what they described as a 50-foot-long monster that was heading right for them. In a quote, Keith said, "I've never seen nothing like it in my life. It was like something out of this world. A very frightful thing. My son Rodney said it was like some kind of monster." They said that they saw it coming at their boat, and they pulled their anchor and set out at full speed. They described it as coming within a couple feet of them, and when it was close, they saw eyes as big as saucers that were red and bloodshot.
Very scary.
I'll tell the rest of this event through quotes from the Rosses. One quote said, "It had its mouth wide open, and there were 2 big tusks, I call them tusks, that hung down from its upper jaw. It passed astern of us, so close, and we could see its body about 40 or 50 feet long, with grayish, snake-like looking skin, full of lumps or bumps and barnacles. And it appeared to us to have a fish's tail, an up and down tail, not flat like a whale's, I tell you. Nothing like that was ever supposed to be in those waters." A quote from Rodney was, "I never seen crocodiles other than on television, but its head was sort of like that coming out of the water. peaked at the top with a big wide mouth. Its neck was full of things that looked like gigantic barnacles. Its eyes weren't in sockets, they were popped out the side of its head, and it had 2 tusks, maybe 2 or 3 feet long, and 4 inches or so round. It was a frightening thing to see. So those are pretty big teeth.
Are they? Like, seriously, they're massive.
2 or 3 feet long, 4 inches around. Like, I wouldn't want to be bit by one of those. I can see why they describe them as tusks.
Yeah, I feel like that would be one heck of a bite.
Rodney described it as having the shape of a huge seahorse. After they escaped from the beast, they found Eisner Penny's boat and described their encounter. They heard the creature splashing in the distance, but due to the fog, they didn't see it.
I don't know if I'd rather be able to see it or not.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like something you don't want to see, but I will also, if I heard it going around in the fog, I feel like I'd be getting out of there rather than going and having a chat with the other guy who's seen it.
Yeah, I would not be lingering in the water, that's for sure. They're braver than I am.
I know some of the stories even talk about how, where they see Eisner Penny there a couple days later. Apparently he had taken a couple of days off to recuperate, and then the first day out, when he's getting ready, they come in and they're like, "You will not believe what I just saw."
Oh no.
And he just got the courage back, like, "Oh, maybe I was making it up in my head. I gotta get back out there. Everyone's making fun of me." And then it must be a little vindicating though.
Right, knowing that someone else witnessed the same creature.
Exactly. So there was a third sighting that was a few days after the second, and it was by Edgar Nickerson and his 15-year-old son, Robert. They were out fishing, and as they were pulling in their gear, they heard splashing in the fog. They said that they saw what they thought was a whale at first. As they got closer, they saw a creature that they described similarly to the last account. When asked about it, Edgar Nickerson said, "If there's a devil, that was it."
That would honestly be so appropriate for the Maritimes for the devil to be a sea creature.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, I think there might be one about the devil being a fish. Is that the story?
I don't know, but now I'm curious. If you know people, let us know.
I'll find that and send it. I swear it's in one of my books. There's what some consider a fourth sighting, but I'm a little bit skeptical. It was much later and pretty far away from the other sightings. It was on May 4th, 1997, when 2 fishermen, Charles Bungay and C. Clark, were fishing in Fortune Bay on the southern coast of Newfoundland when they saw what they thought was floating garbage. They were going to go pick up the garbage out of the water, be good Samaritans, you know. But then, when they got closer, they found that it was not quite what they thought it was, and they described a monster similar to the other tales. They said it turned its head and looked right at us. All we could see was a neck 6 feet long, a head like a horse. He just looked at us and slid under the water and disappeared. So, there's no evidence that this is the same creature that was seen in Nova Scotia. It was pretty significantly later, and also just a completely different spot. So it's hard to say, you know, like 20 years difference and I don't know how many kilometers. But it does sound like it was a similar creature, so even if it's not the same one, maybe it could be a similar species of some sort.
That's it, you never know. Can you imagine thinking you're going to pick up like a piece of garbage out of the ocean and all of a sudden...
It just like looks up at you?
I'd lose it.
Yeah. Now, there's some speculation as to what this creature is. Some say that it's a new giant species of seahorse. Some believe it's a prehistoric whale or an extremely large sea snake, but honestly, we don't really know because there's only been 3 or maybe 4 sightings.
Can you imagine? I love seahorses. I think they are such beautiful little creatures. But if one was 50 feet long coming at me, I would just not be a fan.
No, fair enough. So, while we're on the topic, there was a tale of a similar beast in a close but not so close area off the coast of Gloucester, Massachusetts over the years. It was described as a massive serpent with humps on his back, and it was seen by many sailors and fishermen. The earliest alleged sighting of this sea monster was in 1638 by John Joslin, who was an English traveler who came to New England and wrote about all the different things that he saw, and apparently this was one of them. And it was most prominently seen in 1817, first by a group of fishermen who described a 60-foot-long serpent with a head like a turtle off the coast of Gloucester. In what may be the most famous sighting, in August 1817, the crew of a schooner called the Caravan reported a large creature with a head like a serpent, a humped back, swimming alongside their vessel. They apparently fired a cannon at it, but then it disappeared underwater and they didn't see it again after that. There were many sightings over the following years which described a long snake-like creature with a humped back and head that was similar to either a horse, a seal, or a dinosaur. You know, 3 very similar things.
That's it. Back to the old horse alligator. See, at least horses and alligators, that I understand that both of their heads are very long. I want to know, what are the similarities between a horse, seal, and dinosaur?
I think it is just like the elongated head, because the seals kind of have like the snout. But it's also very possible that there's just a bunch of people seeing completely different things.
That's true. All sorts of different sea serpents out and about.
Exactly. Also, the way that they describe a humped back, it immediately makes me think of a humpback whale. I know that they're describing a longer serpentine thing, but a humped back, it's just like, okay, like the whale.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, the most recent sighting of this creature was in 1980 when people reported seeing a sea serpent in the area. There are a lot of theories as to what it could be. Some people think it's just a hoax. Some people think it could be a large eel species. I think you might have talked about
the conger eels in the Old Ned episode.
Exactly, yeah. And some of the accounts had people reporting that there was a stinger or something coming out of the head. And from that one, those accounts are probably just narwhals. But you know, it's hard to say. Like I said, it spread over from like the 1600s to, 45 years ago. And I mean, there's probably more accounts that I just haven't heard of. But it's very interesting, and I figure it's just like, it's a different country, I know, but like, as the crow flies, very close to us here, especially at the southern tip of Nova Scotia, so it would be interesting if it's related to the sea monster sightings from around here.
Yeah, geographically very close, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Exactly. All right, so before we go, I want to do a quick extra segment. In our travels along looking for folklore here, I find some other things that I'm just interested in, and rather than force my fiance to constantly listen to me say them, I'm going to share it with you, because if you're listening to this, you must be interested in folklore to a degree. This is another one of the segments I like to call Monster by Mistake, which is where I talk about different animals that have been attributed some extra folklore qualities. In this one, I want to talk about a creature known as the Hellbender, or the Hellbender salamander. It's the largest known salamander in North America, and it's found mostly in eastern and central United States. No one knows exactly where it got its name, but they believe it's because early settlers thought it looked like, and I quote, a creature from hell where it's bent on returning.
I love that.
I know, it has quite a few different common names, and I'm gonna read them out here. They're pretty great. There is snot otter, lasagna lizard, devil dog, mud devil. I like that they kind of just like did a feature with mud dog, mud devil, devil dog, all 3 of them together.
I just jumped around a bit.
Water dog, grampus. I looked up the word grampus, and it's actually a type of like dolphin or whale, I believe.
Oh.
So not sure where that's related. Allegheny alligator, and Laverian water newt.
Those are a lot of titles.
There is. Despite this, I think my favorite one is still the very metal name of Hellbender.
Right. Bent on returning there.
Exactly. And while it's large and has some minor differences biologically from other salamanders, it's overall not actually all that interesting of a creature. It's kind of like, oh, it's a big salamander. It's got like some little different features on his body. Nothing that interesting. One thing is that people often thought that they were threats to local fishing and that these big salamanders would eat all the fish.
Oh.
But actually, they're seen as an indication of good aquatic health because they don't like to go anywhere where it's too dirty. Too polluted, I guess is the better word. They kind of like dirt. Now, salamanders of all forms have always had strange folklore around them. Despite the fact that salamanders seem to be mostly slimy and like cold, wet places, they're very often associated with flames. This connection to fire may be linked to the fact that many salamanders will live in old rotten logs. So when people back in the day would put a log on the fire, a salamander would just run out of it because it was being scared away by the fire. So instead of taking the logical thing of, oh, there must have been a salamander in there, they instead thought that the salamander was born out of the flames, and many people believe that salamanders can create fire and also have the power to put fire out. Also, and this was just a weird one that I found, there's some folklore that people believe that if a salamander vomits on you, that it will cause the hair on the area that it vomits on you to fall out and your skin to change color.
My goodness, I will certainly not be near any vomiting salamanders then.
Yeah, so thanks for listening to me talk about hellbenders and salamanders in general. You just saved my fiance from needing to listen to me talk about them, so I'm sorry.
That was a treat.
Thanks. And thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of It Came From The Maritimes. You can find us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at It Came From The Maritimes, on X and Blue Sky at ICFT Maritimes. And if you have any Atlantic Canada folklore you'd like to see covered in a future episode, or any spooky stories of your own, email us at itcamefromthemaritimes@gmail.com. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It will help people find us. And speaking about my fiance, I believe 5 days after this episode,
So 2 days before this episode releases.
2 days before this episode releases. Sorry, we're recording a little ahead of time. I will have been married, so I guess now my wife. So we have a little folklore tip related to weddings for you here. Chelsea, do you want to tell us that?
I would, and I just want to congratulate Evan and his wonderful wife on their recent wedding. And our folklore tip is that 2 spoons in a saucer is a sign of a wedding to come.
Well, look at that.
Congratulations, Evan, and thank you everyone for listening.
Bye.